Good morning, Metro Campus. It is so nice to be back. Yeah. It's much better to get an applause when I'm here to talk about accreditation than the boos. You know, ooh, we don't want to hear about it. But anyway, for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Lindsay English. I have been on the Metro Campus for many, many years, but for the last two, I've been serving as the Associate Vice President of Academic Professional Development and Assessment, and am our Accreditation Liaison Officer with the Higher Learning Commission, which is the purpose of my visit here today. But I'm going to all four campuses today to speak directly with the faculty in terms of preparing for the visit. And I was just real pleased to find on my schedule that I was getting to be here first with you folks. It does really feel like coming home and seeing so many familiar faces. So, have you heard about the Higher Learning Commission? No, not at all. Do you know what's going on here in the next couple weeks or couple months? We'll be done by the end of February. Right, no, it's really a continuous process, but we have some things that we need to have happen in the next few weeks. What I'd like to do, I'm going to have to move pretty quickly because I have about 45 minutes of a hard stop with your schedule and with mine, because I'll be off to West Campus. But my goals here today is to go through the Tri-C relationship with the Higher Learning Commission so that you have a better understanding or thorough understanding of our association, that you can explain our association with students, with other faculty, and particularly any of you that speak with adjunct faculty, share this information with them, and that you feel very comfortable participating in the process during the visit, February 19th, 20th, and 21st. Because that's really my goal, is I want you to be fully participating, and I want you to feel comfortable about it, know what to expect. So while I'll go through some background information, we're actually going to go through some sample questions that you're likely to be asked. I don't know for sure, because they could ask you anything, but I have some ideas of things that they might ask, and so that can help you feel more comfortable. And we can talk a little bit about distance offerings if you'd like, because they will review our distance courses. And I certainly want to answer any questions. So you can see it's a lot for us to cover, but I want to try to meet as much of your questions as possible. On your tables is a little postcard. There may be extras at certain tables, and I have some extras up here if you don't have one. On one side is our mission, and on the other side are the 5 criteria that we'll talk about and we'll go through the questions for. So this is just a kind of a handy guide for you to have through our visit in February. What is accreditation? Accreditation's purpose is really just to be sure that we are as good as we can be. It's a quality improvement effort, and there are some compliance and regulatory issues that we need to meet, primarily to be sure that we can issue federal funds. So the real criteria that we have to be compliant with in terms of law, we'll talk about, but those are some of the things that you have had to deal with information on your syllabus, the academic rigor statements about credit hours, those kind of things, because it ensures, by being accredited, it ensures other institutions that our credits are transferable, that a credit is a credit is a credit. All right, that's the whole basis of how we transfer education from one institution to another. And it ensures the federal government and the public that we are a good use, we use their funds well. So if we would ever lose accreditation, we would not be able to issue federal financial aid. And of course, that would affect over 60% of our students. So it is very, very important to us. There are 2 levels of accreditation. There's institutional accreditation, God bless you. There's institutional accreditation, and that's what I'm here to talk about today, is about the Higher Learning Commission. And then each of our specialized programs might also carry accreditation. And there are examples of the nursing accreditation, ASIN, CODA for dental hygiene, and COARC is for respiratory care. And I just picked a couple of the logos to show them. But we have over 39 specialized program accreditations as well. And what the Higher Learning Commission does with that is they want to ensure that we're maintaining our specialized accreditation programs too. The Higher Learning Commission is one of 6 regional accrediting agencies. It's the largest. These 6 agencies are what's recognized by the Department of Education to accredit institutions of higher ed. We have been continuously accredited since 1968, but what's kind of interesting to know is in 1968 we were accredited by individual campus. And it wasn't until 1979, soon after the Eastern Campus came on board, that we shifted to an institutional accreditation that covered all of our campuses. So if any of you were here in the early 70s, you may have gone through the visits and all the reporting by campus, where now we do it as a full institution. The HLC offers 3 different ways that we can achieve accreditation. They're called pathways. The college chose the 3rd one, which is AQUIP. It stands for Academic Quality Improvement Program. It was adopted in 2004. AQUIP is a pathway that's only available to high-performing institutions. In other words, we apply to be an AQUIP school, and the HLC has said, yes, you have shown us that you've maintained accreditation, you have processes and practices in place that reinforce the processes. We think you can handle this. What makes it more challenging is that it's continuous. So the other pathways, it's a 10-year cycle, and what typically happens for institutions on those cycles is they achieve their accreditation, and then they don't think about it until about year 7 or 8, where then they have to start their self-study. And they work real hard to get their self-study in by the end of probably year 8 or into early year 9. And then they have their site visit, and they just start that 10-year cycle over again. In the AQUIP cycle, we are constantly submitting reports. We have to have action reports every year. And we submit results of those projects. We do some self-assessment in terms of where we think we can improve. We identify those areas, we put new processes or improved processes in place, and then we report again on the results. So it really is a continuous process and something that we don't just do to get ready for that 8th year. All right? What has changed, however, for us is that in this 8-year cycle, accreditation standards for institutions, the pendulum has sort of swung to being more stringent. The federal government in particular is asking us to verify information much more deeply than we ever have before. So in the past, they didn't really review syllabi. They just looked at our process for creating syllabi. But today, they're looking at syllabi. It's those kind of things that are a little bit different in today's environment. Will it be that way in 8 years? I don't know. We'll just see, because it is a process that changes. So we're in our 8th year of the 8-year cycle with AQUIP, and it's called the Comprehensive Quality Review. There are many, many steps that we've done to get ready for this. Last year, we submitted our systems portfolio, which is like a self-study for those of you that are familiar with other programs. It's our self-assessment of how we do on all of the criteria, what our processes are, what our results are, and if we think we have areas that we want to improve in. That is reviewed by the HLC or peer reviewers within the HLC, and we got information back or feedback, and it's called the appraisal. That was all done in year 7. The portfolio, by the way, is up on our public website. If you go to tric.edu, look for /accreditation or search for accreditation, you'll see the portfolios, our previous portfolio and our most current. So you have an opportunity, if you'd like, to look at what we did as an institution. So the CQR highlights report is our response to their feedback. It's our opportunity to clarify something, to provide more information if they asked a question. You know, they said, oh, we're not quite sure we understand how you assess student learning. So in the highlights report, we can give more information. So that was submitted already. Because we're a multi-campus, when they come in February, they'll be visiting Metro and West Shore. So we had to do a report on Metro and West Shore. They're visiting those two campuses on a cycle. There's nothing that caused that visit except that it's a cycle. So the last time they were here, they were at East and West, and the next time they come, they'll be at East and West. So it's just a cycle for that visit, but you're the lucky ones. They get to come in February here. We completed our federal compliance review. This document was over 3,000 pages long. All our documentation on our schedule, how we issue transcripted credit, things like from our financial aid office, all the financial debt ratios and student information, all our student processes on complaints, how they've been resolved, our catalog, which was quite a big portion of that 3,000 pages. But this is where we had to document things that are happening in our courses by our syllabi, the academic rigor statement, things like the accessibility statement on your syllabus, student attendance or tracking, outcomes, those kinds of things. The HLC then conducted a student opinion survey. This is their survey, even though we distributed it. We distributed it in November, and students had 4 weeks to respond. The results went directly to the HLC. They summarize it, take out any identifying information, and they've sent that feedback back to us. We've had it already. ALNS Council had an opportunity to review that student feedback, and it's been shared with the Deans of Student Affairs and the Deans of Academic Affairs so that they can look at that feedback. What could happen is the reviewers may look at this student opinion survey and it might generate questions. So it's good for us to be knowledgeable of what students have said. Very typical kinds of things. There wasn't anything surprising out of the complaints. They were very typical student complaint kind of things as I interpreted the survey. Community comments? Yeah, Valerie.
Just a quick question. Do you know the response rate on that student survey?
They did give that to me, Valerie, and I don't recall. Michael, do you recall what the? I can get that information for you, though.
Thank you.
Sure. Community comments is the same type of deal, but to the general public. So the college put things out on cleveland.com, on our social media outreach. They run an ad in the paper that just encourages anybody in the community to submit comments or feedback about us to the HLC. That window just closed, so they'll be tabulating that information, and we may or may not get it before the visit, but they'll certainly come with that information if we don't get it ahead of time. And now we're getting ready for the actual on-site visit, which happens February 19th and 20th. And hopefully, and I'm very confident it will, our results will end up with reaffirmation of accreditation. But we won't find that out till sometime in June or July. The results go to a committee and the board of the HLC has to approve it. You know, there's just all that process that takes a little bit of time. Yes?
Scott mentioned that we should try to interact with the accreditors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a specific opportunity for us to do that?
Yes.
Or are they going to visit our classrooms? How's that going?
Yeah, there'll be specific opportunities to do that. We do not have a confirmed agenda, but we will in the next couple weeks. I fully expect that that'll be set, and we'll share that very broadly. What will happen is there'll be an open faculty forum here at Metro and at West Shore, and invitations will go to faculty college-wide. So your colleagues from West and East are welcome to come to any of those forums. It's just they'll be held on these two campuses because this is where the site visitors will be. And what we'll do here in a minute is go through some likely questions. They will be walking the hallways because they'll want to engage with students. They'll want to engage with you if you're in the hallway. They will not walk into a classroom unless you've invited them. All right? Yeah.
Hypothetically, if you have a student who is interested in university transfer, comes to us, takes one course, gets an A++ experience, how would that student's opinion impact how HLC views us? If just one course, A++ experience, would that impress the HLC?
Well, yes, as would someone who was here for even two classes or a full degree program. Did everyone hear his question? His question was if a student just had a one-class interface with us, would the HLC value their opinion? So what happened in the fall with the student opinion, it went to all currently enrolled students. So there was no distinction whether or not they had been here for so many credits or not. Okay? All right, so let's go real quickly through. What I'd like to do, if you turn the card on the one side, you'll see these 5 criteria. The first one is about mission. And so it's about, is it understood? Do we publicly articulate our mission? Do we understand our role in a multicultural environment? All of those kinds of things is what they're going to look for when they look to see if we're meeting this standard. So these are the type of questions that you might see being asked to faculty about the mission statement. How do you see as a faculty member the mission playing out in your work? What's the strongest piece of evidence from your perspective as a faculty member that the institution knows and follows its mission? Or what examples could you cite? Let's talk about this for just a minute. What are some things that how might you answer that first question? How do you see as a faculty member the mission of the college, which is on the other side of the card, playing out in your work and in your role? Yes?
So we just got done with the Stokes program, and I think that's a great example of not only bringing the mission of the college to the community, but also incorporating the learning education of the students as well as the community.
Yeah. I know they're taping this or streaming it, so I'm just going to repeat some of the things. So her comment was to talk about the Stokes program last year. Now, that was a wonderful opportunity to bring resources to the community and to bring different agencies of the community together. It's a great example. Another one, Derek.
We are a teaching institution. We get right in their face and teach them.
There you go. We are a teaching institution, exactly. We'll probably have these faculty open forums in MLA 102, so it'll be like a lecture hall. There'll probably be 2 to 4 we'll have 6 site visitors, but they're going to have to conquer and divide. So I don't know how many will be running the faculty focus sessions, probably 2 or 3. So my guess is they're just going to openly ask a question and see who responds. It's not like they're going to ask everyone in that room a question. So you can feel comfortable choosing what you want to respond to and what you don't. But I just want you to feel comfortable with the type of question so you can think about it. Do you think academics are the top priority? I see some nods. How would you respond to that? What is your evidence of that? Yeah.
I think the emphasis that's given throughout the Metro campus on rapport, student-faculty rapport, can impact academic success. So I think the rapport, the relationship aspect will closely tied in with student success.
Thank you, Elliot. So we're talking about the rapport that faculty have at Tri-C with their students as being evidence that academics is the top priority.
Graduation rates.
Graduation rates,
Job
placement.
rates, all of
Mhm.
We have a lot of programs and most of them are accredited, so if they weren't accredited, we wouldn't have so many programs. So I think that's a positive.
The fact that we have so many programs that hold specialized accreditation is another result. Mhm.
Well, I was gonna say these campus days,
Excuse me.
faculty colloquia, workshops that we have the opportunity to attend and are encouraged to attend, get extra money from it.
Right.
You know, they always really help me kind of understand what the mission is and how we're implementing.
Great. Did everyone hear that? Talking about professional development opportunities, days like today? Yes, Jen.
FYE academic plans, making sure that the students know where they're going, what
Okay.
their goals are.
So having opportunities like FYE, academic plans for students, helping students, things we have in place that help students focus on their academics is another evidence that it's a priority for the institution. So they're likely to have a conversation. They may ask you a follow-up question. Tell me more about how we ensure students have academic plans. You know, they may have a dialogue with you. You're likely it'll be about an hour or an hour and a half session. Again, I don't know the agenda yet. So let's move on to the second criteria. This one is about integrity, how the institution exhibits ethical and responsible conduct. This has to do with the governing board being sufficiently autonomous, that we're committed to the freedom of expression and the pursuit of truth. If you don't, you know, for instance, if you don't know much about our governing board, it's okay. They may not even ask you as faculty members about the governing board. That may be a question that they'll ask executive leadership when they're talking about criteria 2. But here are some questions that you're likely to be asked. What examples can you provide which speak to how ethical and responsible conduct is played out at Tri-C? What types of institutional policies guide expectations of academic honesty and integrity? That's likely to be asked because faculty play a central role. So how would you respond to that? What type of institutional policies guide expectations for academic honesty for students?
Statements on plagiarism in the syllabi and the processes in the student handbook.
So Kim's answer is the statement on policies on academic honesty and plagiarism that you might have on your syllabus, the student code of conduct. What do you do to help a student who has been found guilty of plagiarism? You report it. There's a reporting process. Tell me about the reporting process.
You reach out to student academic affairs.
You reach out and report that to student and academic affairs.
Do
Irene?
you know if they adjusted in the new student handbook, the policy on cheating? Is it clearer now in this new one? 'Cause in the last book, it just said that it was a really broad, unclear statement about cheating.
I don't know if it changed. Is there anyone here that would know that it's changed? The question was, did the student code of conduct statement on cheating and plagiarism change with the new handbook? Or did it stay?
That it stayed the same.
I don't know that there was a change. Is there anyone from Student Affairs here? Rolanda, do you know? All right, so not to her knowledge.
So if you read the statement, it's very unclear about cheating.
Okay.
So I would hope that
So-
you would address that.
So the HLC might say, what suggestions would you make to the institution then? Tell me more about that.
So, I mean, I would suggest seriously that there needs to be some
Well, do some of you have a different opinion or thought about that? Oh, it needs to be clearer, have set consequences in the procedure or policy. Rolanda?
Well, the procedure, it's in there, consequences, I mean,
Not in the student handbook.
okay, not the consequences, but most of the consequences that professors have would be outlined in your syllabus. Your consequences, and one thing that I found is a lot of times, you guys tend to have different definitions or interpretations of what is in the student handbook, so it helps when it's clearly outlined in your syllabus.
Okay, well, I don't mean to get off
Yeah,
topic,
no.
but this was a real big concern last semester, okay? I had somebody cheat twice, and there was evidence that she cheated twice, and the school took no, yeah, and I reported it twice, and the school did let her continue on and get a degree, okay? Not
Okay.
in our program, but we had our consequences stated in the syllabus, okay? But I thought the school had as well consequences and criteria to follow, but there was none.
Okay. Well, what would happen during the HLC? I mean, they would just ask for your suggestions. They might ask if someone else had a different thought about that so that there could be dialogue. But they'd likely to take that feedback and they would verify. They would look into it more. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. That's what the whole purpose of this process, because we may, as an institution, decide that that policy needs to be changed. So so I think it's a good dialogue to have. All right? Yeah, Kathy.
Some of the accredited programs, we actually have verbiage, as Irene alluded to, that does say, if you're caught doing, you know, this, this, and this. But I know in our syllabi, this is my syllabi, I spell out academic dishonesty, and I put in parentheses, also means cheating, copying someone else's work. Plagiarism means copying from the internet, from the book. I spell it out because they don't know what those words mean.
Yeah. So what Kathy was sharing is that she actually spells it out on her syllabus, and that many of the specialized accredited programs also have defined consequences. So it's handled in a variety of different ways. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving here. Criteria 3 and 4 on the card relate to specific teaching and learning. So these are the two criteria that they're likely to ask more questions about. So with number 3, this is about the quality, the resources, and the support. So the first thing here are the degree programs appropriate to the associate degree level. So they've reviewed our curriculum. I mean, are we trying to be an R1 institution? No. We offer associate degrees, certificates, workforce, those kinds of things. Is the Gen Ed program appropriate to our mission? Do we articulate our learning outcomes? Does the institution have faculty and staff needed for effective, high-quality programs? Are faculty appropriately qualified? Does that bring up anything that's happened recently? This has been the process about faculty credentialing. And this is a change. HLC has a new guideline about the qualifications for faculty that went into place September 1st of 2017. So what we had to, and we're fortunate because we're the first school in Ohio to go through an accreditation visit after this new guideline has gone into effect. So I don't know from other people's experiences exactly how the HLC is going to come in and look at this. But we've had to verify, for full-time faculty, we had to verify that your personnel file had official transcripts for your degrees. We had to verify that your courses assigned, that you had the qualifications to teach. So some of you may have been teaching across broad areas and are now only qualified to teach in 1 or 2 or 3 disciplines, because it's the discipline. So for instance, the criteria for any general education or liberal arts course is a master's degree in the discipline of the course or a master's degree outside discipline, but with 18 graduate hours in that discipline, all right? Or there's an exception process, the tested experience exception that we have in place. So they're going to come in and they're going to ask for that process to be explained. How do we, when we hire, how are we verifying credentials? When deans make assignments for courses, how are they verifying that the faculty assigned to courses have the appropriate credentials? So I'll work with them on those kinds of things. But they're likely to ask you too. When you assign adjuncts, are you verifying that they have the appropriate credentials, that they meet the guidelines? Are instructors available for student inquiry? So how might you respond to, how are faculty available to students? Office hours?
And for the adjuncts, you made time.
That's exactly right.
It is part of my way of operating.
Yeah. Yesterday at the colloquium, I had a session with the adjuncts, and we had some wonderful answers to this question. But they can be very different. I meet with students before and after class. I meet with them by appointment. I give them my cell number. You know, variety of different ways. Yes?
So, will there ever be at the Metro campus a place where adjunct faculty can meet with students one-on-one in a private cubicle or something like that?
Michael, that's probably it. Yeah.
The short answer is looking at it. The longer answer is something that we hope to incorporate into the campus center. But it's part of what we're wrestling with in construction.
Dr. Scope,
Yes.
in the interim, until you get a final decision for us and I'm not sure how to put this. Are you going to trust us adjuncts to figure out a safe place so that the student feels private, that their conversation with the instructor is private as to them?
Yes,
I guess I'm asking,
Yes.
do you trust me to do that?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
There is at the adjunct office, there's two different situations. It could be immediate, or you can schedule it. The adjunct office, you call them, they have a room where you could meet
That's
in
true.
private.
Yes.
But there's also a location in the MSS building on the 4th floor that's totally any discipline. The faculty member can meet up with the student at that location. There's private areas where you can meet,
Okay.
so.
Except
Yeah.
you just moved tutoring there, so.
Yeah. There are places that you can find, but it's not always, I understand, it's not always convenient. Sometimes those things come up very quickly and are at the moment. And that's where we trust you to find a place where you can have a safe environment. Lots of hands on this one, so we'll talk.
The math department had an office outside just for,
The math department had an office outside just for adjunct, back when I used to do math adjunct. So I would often have a class where I'd have an hour between classes and have office hours there. I thought that worked very well, and it would be any adjunct was using that math. I assume they still do it. I thought it worked very well, and it'd be nice if other departments had something similar.
Well, you know, again, what the HLC might say about something like this is they might provide feedback that, you know, maybe it would be helpful to your adjuncts if you listed places where they could go and shared it. I'm sorry, Miriam, you had something?
Well, I just had a question because the question. Thank you. The question was, do we provide opportunities for the students to meet with their faculty? And I don't understand the actual contractual obligation that adjunct faculty have outside of their teaching hours to meet with students. My understanding is there is no contractual obligation.
It says they're available to students and will respond within, I'm not sure if it's 24 or 48 hours, but there is a time frame in their proffer statement that they sign.
That they,
But it doesn't have to be face-to-face. It doesn't have to be, they could respond through email
That they
or
would respond
voicemail.
to an email. Because
Correct.
as a faculty coordinator with a department entirely staffed by adjuncts, I'm very mindful of what they've been contracted to do, and I tell them not to hold office hours because they're not being paid for it. And sometimes they try to, incorporate as best student service as they can within their contract. But I think it's really important to manage time, in a respectful way for the professionals who are coming in to teach.
Sure.
And that does put some added stress on the full-time faculty to compensate for that so the student experience isn't compromised, whether they're taking a class with adjunct faculty or with full-time faculty. And my answer to the Higher Learning Commission would be that we develop a team atmosphere among the adjunct faculty and me, the full-time faculty, and our program manager to balance the student experience so it doesn't put undue stress on the adjunct faculty, but that it is an area for continuing improvement.
There you go. There you go. Very nice. All right, one more comment, and then I need to move on.
In electrical engineering,
It's on. We heard you.
electrical engineering technology, what we have is tutoring sessions attended by faculty. Any student in any course, welcome into the tutoring time, adjunct or not.
Great, great. So they could hear a variety of different responses, and that's fine. They'll piece it all together in their report. This is a little bit more of 3, but I'm going to move on. This one is about co-curricular programming, and this is something I think they're going to be interested in because we're just beginning to assess co-curricular programming. But we have so many opportunities for students. It's unique as a community commuter college. We have so many things for students to be able to participate in at a co-curricular level that I think that might be of interest to them to talk about that. So here, all right. Oh, did I? Yeah, here's number 3. Okay. So here's some more questions. What can you tell us about learning outcomes? Molly.
All courses should be mapped within a certain time frame. We have a 3-year limit, right? For updating courses. So within 3 years, everything should be mapped.
Correct. Do you have outcomes for your courses? Do you have outcomes for your programs? What are the outcomes for the institution? Pat Stansberry. He'll be a plant. You'll be there, right? How are faculty involved in the curriculum development process? Do faculty have a role? What is your role? Danny?
Yeah, it's based on continuous, based on continuous improvement. We follow the ABET process. So, we essential learning outcomes plus specific outcomes to our curriculum or to our department.
All right, so for a program that has specialized accreditation, there are, thank you, I'm getting my 5-minute signal. Miriam?
Yeah, I just have a question. So when we say general education program, which was in one of the previous slides, is general education and essential learning outcomes, are those synonymous, and have we replaced general education with essential learning outcomes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we have. But I'm using the Higher Learning Commission language. They still refer to Gen Ed core. You might think of that in terms of your own degree programs. Here at the college, because we also have a general studies discipline, it was confusing, so we moved the outcomes name to essential learning outcomes, so it wouldn't be confused with our general studies courses. But they are the same thing. Correct. Correct. All right, I'm going to keep moving here real quickly because number 4 is another one they're going to probably speak with you about. And this is about the evaluation and improvement of teaching. Do we maintain regular program reviews? Do we evaluate the transcript or the credit we transcribe? Do faculty exercise authority over prerequisite work and the rigor and the expectations of student learning? Do we maintain specialized accreditation? Do we demonstrate a commitment to retention and persistence and completion? So here are some of the type of questions you're likely to hear. How would you describe the institution's commitment to resources designed for effective teaching and learning? What is your role as faculty in assuring academic quality? Let's talk about that one real quickly. What do you do as faculty to assure academic quality? Continuous improvement? Continuous learning? For whom? Me. All right, so faculty participate in professional development. Do you and your colleagues set the outcomes for your courses? You define what students ought to be able to do or learn? Do you assess those things? That's what this question is getting at. Yeah.
We can determine our outcomes, which we can map to the essential learning outcomes, but we also look at the content in our courses and look at things like the Ohio Transfer Module and the TAG agreements so that we can try to line those up with others to make our courses more transferable too.
Excellent.
I think it's important to network with professors at other institutions who are teaching like courses to find out how they are growing and developing and how they are changing what they emphasize in various courses.
All right, so what Elliot was talking about is faculty engaging with peers outside the institution, within your discipline, so that you get a sense of what's happening in the discipline and what the levels or standards are across. Yes?
The opportunity to do that would come through attending conventions, meetings, et cetera, outside, to spread the word about what we are doing and to find out what's happening elsewhere.
Right, right. All right, I'm going to move on here to 5. Is about our resources, how we plan and ensure that we are effective with our offerings and our things that will happen in the future, that we're prepared for any opportunities or challenges. So questions for faculty for this criteria are going to be rather broad. What do you see as the strengths and challenges of our governance model? How would you define our governance model? This is when to talk about, we have a faculty senate. We have a AAUP chapter. All right. Mm-hmm. Do you see yourselves as faculty involved in the planning process? Did you hear today about strategic planning coming up? Yes, no? I don't know if it was part of your comments or not. Okay, so we know we're going to be starting a new strategic planning process and that you'll have opportunities to be involved. So that's something else that you might address. In the last closing minutes here, any burning questions that you'd like me to answer?
As an adjunct, everybody, many of us have been through. Usually my voice carries and my students say, you're too doggone loud. My wife certainly says that. Okay, as an adjunct, but everybody here, in one form or another, has been through this. The people in my department, specifically Dr. Ellison, my dean, was wonderful. In July, she sent me an email and said, Sid, we may have to look at some of the areas that you have been teaching for. I started teaching when they started evaluating in 1979. They said, we may have to start rethinking this. So I had a meeting with Dr. Ellison. Sorry, Dr. Ellison, I'm telling stories out of school. So we sat down and said, let's work on your tested experience. We did this in July. The next thing that happened is I was shocked to hear that somebody said, you need to chase down your transcripts. And I'm thinking, I got a job here in '79. I'm wondering where those transcripts are.
Yeah.
But the biggest story here, Dr. English, is we did this in July. And I did not find out the decision that was made as to this particular item until the first day of finals week. Could you please address where the length of the process was and what caused that? Thank you.
Yes, yes. First of all, we found as we began looking at official personnel files that we did not have official transcripts for many, many folks. I cannot answer why. I can only apologize. We need to have those. For some of you, we had student-issued copies, and we need official copies, which come from institution to institution. Many faculty, when they were first hired, submitted transcripts, but had since earned advanced degrees or certificates, and we had no record of that. So there was a long process that we had to go through to be sure that we had official transcripts for everyone and their baccalaureate and master's degrees or doctoral degrees. The process took a long time because we were learning it as we were going, and I'm sorry for that. We started the process with the credential review where the deans were looking at all the personnel files, and that took, I mean, God bless the deans. They spent hours going through personnel files and then inputting that data. And we had that took a long time. So even though you may have been asked in June, business, math, and technology may not have been reviewed until later in July or August. So that's part of that time frame. Because we were missing transcripts, it took a while for transcripts to come in. Oh, Michael, you want to respond?
I do. So let me just start by apologizing to Sid and other folks who went through this process. It did not go the way anybody intended. It took way too long, and it took way too long, and it didn't go as well as we'd hoped. But I want to say just 4 things to answer your question much more directly of why. So the first, Lindsay already mentioned, first time anybody had done this kind of comprehensive review at Tri-C. And so literally figuring out what does tested experience mean. We had tons and tons of discussions about what counts and does it meet the criteria or not. Second, it's just the sheer volume of what we had to do. So we have, at any given semester, we have 3,000 course sections. We don't have that many. We don't have that many adjunct faculty, but we have about 1,000, actually a little more than 1,000. And so literally every single person, every single transcript, all of it. And the third is that we, unfortunately we are a large institution, and we were trying really, really hard to be consistent. And that requires coordinating across a lot of folks and saying, when we look at this, we have to look at it the same way. Everyone has to look at it the same way and be consistent. And so, again, I'm on behalf of my colleagues, I'm going to apologize because it did not go as well as we'd wanted. We wanted it to be much more smooth, and in particular, we wanted to make sure that people who were affected were communicated with well and in a timely fashion, and that did not happen. But there was a lot of work that we crunched into a very short period of time. That said, in the future, we are going to be better at this process. Mm-hmm. That I will promise you.
Okay. I'll take one more question if there's anything. No? Well, I hope to be back on campus before the February visit. Perhaps I've already reached out to the Faculty Senate. We might be able to hold another Faculty Senate meeting. Or at any other time that the leadership would like to have me back to talk about things. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk about the distance courses, but they will look randomly at distance courses. I don't know if I'll know ahead of time and can communicate that with you as the instructor of record. You certainly will know if that is happening the day it's happening. At the very latest, I'm hoping I can get that to you much sooner than that. The key here, what they'll be looking at, is to be sure that it meets the same kind of rigor that would be expected on a face-to-face course. That's what they'll be looking at. They're not going to look at how you're grading students. They're going to look to see, is the syllabus there, is the learning outcomes relevant, is there evidence of communicating with students on a regular basis. Those kinds of things, just like they would with a seat-based course.
So Dr. English, I'm sorry, they're going to go into our Blackboard section.
Correct.
I got you. Thank you.
Correct. What they're likely to, this is what I think will happen, all right? I'm not a good gambler, but this is what I think will happen. They're likely to look at a course that's offered across multiple modalities. So I'm just going to pick on English 1010. It's offered in the 16-week, 14-week, face-to-face, it's offered blended, and it's offered online. All those modalities have to meet the same outcome. So that's what they're likely to do, is look at an English 1010 face-to-face syllabus, a blended syllabus, and look at it online, and see if there's some level of continuity in terms of they've got the same outcomes. That's where we'll get in trouble. I think if there's outcomes are different, if the expectations for students are different in an online course than a face-to-face. That doesn't mean the assignments have to be the same. Listen to the difference. It's the outcomes. That's why we're insisting we all use the official outcomes and have them listed. Okay? Danny? Yes, yes, it's already at the campus. And so they're,
the stir where we make, if it's possible to maybe to add some examples of things to your questions, that I think that would be very helpful. At least it spurs a little bit more of the thinking of the direction we should be, looking at.
I'm not to direct your responses, and I'm afraid that would be a little directive. So that's why we're holding sessions like this. But and actually, more information that we didn't go through here is on the online courses, so it'll be good for you to see the whole thing.
And this presentation was recorded, and it's going to go out tomorrow in the Metro Express. So the questions asked and the feedback, and that'll all be shared tomorrow.
Okay, great. Well, it was a pleasure to be with you today. It's great to see all your faces. I miss you. This is my home.
All right, so we have the ultimate challenge in front of us, and that is, can our faculty talk in 5 minutes or less? I will have a timer. This is going to be like a game show. We are going to literally, we don't have a gong noise, but we're going to make a big noise when there's 5 minutes and the faculty member must stop. So the challenge of this game is to have the faculty members present to you as if they are your class and share some technology or a way they present or the way they use material with students in an interesting and fun way. So this is a very engaging session, a very fast-paced session, and here is the lineups of contestants. Number 1, we have Alan Gerding. He is teaching us how to use iPhone to HDMI. Then we have Sharon Stefanovic with PowerPoint Chromebook demonstration. Woo-hoo-hoo. And then we have Pat Stansberry, PowerPoint Pecha Kucha format. Michael Kenny with Boogie Board Surface Connection. And then we have Kathleen Rossman with BrightLink. Brian Hall, Lavalier Mic and Whiteboards. And Courtney Kelly, PowerPoint Audience Response System. And finally, Cassandra Jackson and Pam McGroat on website link Kahootit. So are we ready for our first contestants? Let's give our contestant Alan a round of applause.
Go. Hey, thanks for having me up. I want to talk a little bit about technology. Obviously, that's why I'm up here. I remember when I was helping my mother carry groceries to the car, I tried to bring it all in one trip, and she said, the more you carry, the more you'll drop. And I know, pretty wise words. This is an analogy for technology, because technology sounds great, but if we take on too much at once, there's a lot of room for failure. So the idea for technology is to make it as seamless as possible. So my original idea was to come up with some markers, because hands down, the technology I still use the most is that piece of chalk. Because how many times have we gone into the classroom and technology has failed? Maybe the computer's locked out, whatever. But my nemesis, Brian Hall, is going to talk more about that later on. So instead, I'm going to talk about what our students and you probably have in your pockets, maybe even right now. Maybe it's in front of you, but what do you have in your pockets? Like I have my keys. I have my phone. So here's the deal. Phone. Has this happened to you? You walk in and the person before you, the faculty member, didn't log out of the computer. Yeah, and then you have to like reset the computer or have to log out, or maybe the computer is taking forever to load. You're just curses. But you have your computer with you almost at all times. In fact, I'm not trying to shake my finger at anything, but a lot of your phones are probably more powerful than a lot of the computers that are on campus. So this is the little secret device. You've probably seen these HDMI cables hanging out at any of your classroom podiums, whatnot, and you can't just plug it into your iPhone. That's why you need one of these devices. So I'm just gonna plug it in here and plug it in like so. Yeah, how about that? And fair warning, by the way, anything that shows up on your phone will show up there. So what you may want to do is you may want to go ahead and make sure you're not on the internet. You got it. Yeah, close Candy Crush, whatever else you got going on. So here we go. And I have markers just in case this doesn't work. No, I don't. No, I don't.
Your HDMI, not that one.
All right, try the HDMI again. Here we go. Case in point. Here we go. Bum, bum, bum. I promise this worked at home, and it worked earlier today. Okay. So as you can see, get some, yeah. Where's my chalkboard? Let's see if my color of my face is changing. Well, that's the HDMI to iPhone. Oh, it's connecting. It's connecting. How am I doing on time?
You're still good. 2 minutes to spare.
Great. Great. 2 minutes. Connecting. Here we go.
Can I go in the bright light?
What's that?
Put in the bright light.
Maybe.
Power it up.
There we go. Did it go to Brightlink?
No, I want to give you the bright light. There we go.
What? What? Where? What? Hey! Oh! Yeah, the more you carry, the more you can drop. So you simply go ahead and you can bring up your PowerPoints, whatever you've loaded up. For example, here's something popular. And this is just showing off some of the other technology I've used in the classroom. YouTube. People have gone up to YouTube all the time. But check out this. Made YouTube videos. This is more for my online classes. And this is me just going over my PowerPoints, and this is available for online students. A lot of people ask, how did you do that? That's really simple. Everything I did was absolutely free. So if you want to know more details on that, I can just go to Safari and show you that. Oh, there was some regular show in the background. Screencast-O-Matic is this free download, which is where it screen captures anything that you have on your computer. And then if you just have a microphone, and a lot of computers at home nowadays have a microphone built in, you can just record audio as you're going through your presentation. So basically, you're sitting at home doing your own PowerPoint presentation, record it, upload it to YouTube, bam, boom. The other thing is Audacity. I'll show off this too. Podcasts. So Audacity just does audio, and I can access this. This is a Star Wars podcast. This is all.
I am not feeling well. No, let's get this show over with, shall we, Jeremiah? I agree. It's a late night last night. Yeah, Happy New Year, by the way. Yeah, you too.
Anyway, everything I've done here, downloadable for free. And this link, though, is not free. Out of time.
I'm trying to get it gone.
Trying to get it going? All right. This piece does cost some money, so if I went into Amazon, and you can see that it costs like $20, $25, depends. So, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay. Oh man. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. You ready, Sharon? All right. And our next presenter is Sharon Stefanovic with PowerPoint Chromebook demonstration. We'll let you get set up, and then I will start the timer.
Is it up and running?
PowerPoint first.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, go. Okay, so thanks to one of the IT mini grants, we got some Chromebooks and some Vernier LabQuest units for the physics lab and for the chemistry lab. I'm going to show you what we do in physics. So there's just one example of some of the great things you can get if you apply for grants, which I would suggest that you guys think about doing if you haven't already. This was the idea, that we were going to have the Chromebooks and the mini LabQuest units, and that they would hook up to these sensors and take data, and I'm going to show you how that works. It was a little bit interesting because once the equipment was on the way, we kind of found out that the app didn't work and a workaround would be necessary. So I had the opportunity to learn how to install a different operating system on the Chromebooks. And then we're using a software beta, so there's a couple different things the students have to log into. And they have blown me away because they just did it. Like, I gave them the directions, they followed them, they wrote them down, and they just rolled with it, and they knew that we were trying to do something good, so they had the equipment, and they were amazing. And they even started troubleshooting the equipment. They learned that if you unplug something and plug it back in, it fixes this problem, and they did it the first day. So they were amazing, and with the new equipment that we got that I'm showing you, we eliminated a lot of the trouble where we had these teeny tiny displays before that nobody could see. So that's better, the students are better able to see what they're doing, and they're rolling with the troubleshooting. This is one picture of the students using some of the technology. You can see they have what looks like the computer, that's the Chromebook. There's the white gray box next to the paper, that's the LabQuest Mini. We have these carts that they can roll down an air track, which is kind of like air hockey, but it's a triangle-shaped track that this just slides down. And we have these PhotoGate sensors. It's an IR beam that goes across. If you break it, the Mini sends a signal to the Chromebook. Can you guys hear me? I'm kind of away from the mics. Okay. So the carts have the flag that breaks the beam. This is some of the students using it. A couple more pictures of the students just using this equipment. They are totally good with it. Someone's adjusting the flag because you have to make sure it's facing the right way. It's supposed to be 5 centimeters. And that is a picture of the display. And I'm going to show you an even better thing. I'm going to show you what we get on here when we take actual data. And it's going to look kind of like that screen. So I need, I'll say 4 volunteers, please, to come hold things. We are going to do a pseudo lab experiment. Jen, come on up. Please, yes. You, sure.
Sure, David. It's not hazardous.
The time is 2:48.
In other words, 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
Okay. You are each going to hold a PhotoGate. Someone else, well, I guess you don't have to hold. Someone else can operate this.
I'm going to do this part.
Dude, if you want to do that, you're going to use the trackpad and you're going to hit the.
Inputs.
Oh, yes. Could we switch inputs? How do we do that?
He'll take care of it.
Ready?
We want to switch it so you can see what this Chromebook is displaying. Thank you. Well, I thought.
It will. Count to 3.
I think this is going to be you. Okay, so you're going to use the trackpad and that green arrow that looks like a play button for a. Yeah, you're going to hit that, and that'll tell this to start taking data. And then people holding the PhotoGates, make sure your fingers aren't in between. And go ahead and click it. Move it a little bit and see if it turns red. Try clicking it again.
Other side of the mouse, of the touch screen, of the touchpad.
If it doesn't work one more time, I'll try it too. Well, that's interesting.
What would you do?
Yeah, it does it right there.
It got grayed out, so I had to unplug and replug in the port that the students taught me the first day they played with it. So we're going to erase the old stuff and start new. So now it's collecting, so you want to run that through one PhotoGate and then the other PhotoGate. And you guys are going to see that when she does that, you'll get a velocity pop up for each photo gate for how fast the flag is going through the photo gate. That one went through at 0.649 meters per second. That one was was slower at 0.261 meters per second. So you can actually tell how fast a cart is moving when it goes through that sensor using this equipment. And you can use that to calculate momentum and other things. So, thank you. Thank you.
That was all very fancy.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. That was awesome. A science experiment in 5 minutes. Beautiful. All right, our next contestant is Pat Stansberry with PowerPoint Petakucha format. Give a hand to Pat Stansberry.
So, all right, so he's going to start it in a second. You don't need to time this because it's self-timed, but let's see how that works out. So the perils of PowerPoint are just how long can this go on? PowerPoint is still the standard of presentation. Other people have tried to unseat it. It doesn't necessarily work. Even millennial students who really know all this other technology, when given an opportunity to do a presentation, say, well, I'll just do PowerPoint, in part because they get it for free. So therein lies one of the features of this, automatic advance. I have no choice but to move on. PowerPoint is ancient, yes. Little known fact, the cave paintings at Lascaux, France are actually in PowerPoint format. It's its own cliche, but it can be fixed. You need focus, you need speed, and enter Pentakucha. It's Japanese for chit-chat, started in Tokyo in 2003 for both business and academics. It has an absolute time limit in its purest form of 6 minutes and 40 seconds, but you can go even faster if you abbreviate it, fewer slides, shorter slides, so on. Focus, focus, focus. Here's a demonstration of it that I did in class, and I took part in this. My class did it and I did it. It was doing something called rhetorical analysis, where you're trying to understand not what something says, but how it works. If someone gives a speech, what devices do they use? What appeals do they make to help you to believe them? I analyzed a TED Talk by Adam Foss called The Prosecutor's Vision for a Better Justice System, and gave the students this information so that they, if they wanted to, could look at it themselves. And I did a rhetorical analysis looking at the appeals to logic, emotion, and credibility. Here's a little snippet.
One by one would approach the front of that courtroom to say 2 words and 2 words only, not guilty. They were predominantly black and brown. And then a judge, a defense attorney, and a prosecutor would make life-altering decisions about that person without their input. They were predominantly white.
Now, about half of this video that I can't show you and I couldn't show the students is actually an appeal primarily to emotion, pathos. He summarizes Christopher's story, which is exactly what you see. Christopher worked at Best Buy, caught stealing 3 laptops, was not innocent. Foss could have arraigned and prosecuted him. Instead, he wanted to help him. And that helped Christopher get on the right track. That's his emotional appeal. He also appeals to ethos or credibility, believability. And I've just highlighted a few words here where Foss is talking about his own life and also Christopher's life, impoverished, gun violence, drug crime. And his appeal is, and you see the danger in this because it moves on, so I should have practiced more. He also appeals to logos. This is an issue. He also appeals to logos by talking about what we know about the criminal justice system. And you can see he gives a variety of facts that are appeals to logic, but they're not value-neutral facts. He's also at the same time appealing to emotion. Being a prosecutor, he makes a very logical case, and you don't have to read all of this, but the central issue is he makes 3 central claims that support a very clear proposal that if prosecutors can't answer the questions you have for them about justice, they shouldn't be doing the job. Now, here, when we talk about something visual, we have to think about how the visuals themselves appear. And I would argue that Foss himself creates pathos and ethos and logos with his stage presence, with his casual dress, and I would even say his hair, that he blends sort of the prosecutor's look with a more modern look. As a prosecutor, he wants to use logic. And so very much, his argument is very much grounded in logic. He appeals to pathos by talking about hugging Christopher. He appeals to logos by talking about how Christopher transformed his life. And he appeals to ethos not by claiming that he transformed Christopher, but that he was part of the process. As a prosecutor, he uses the rhetoric of the closing argument, logos, pathos, and ethos combined. He's himself a prosecutor, and he issues a command that's an imperative. He repeats the demand and deserve it, deserve it, deserve it, epiphora is what it's called, and he makes a closing argument. Now, the key to making this work better than I'm making it work is get students a template, combine them into a unified single PechaKucha for the class so everybody's just moving. Get them to practice more than I did. Focus, and watch the flash for inspiration. That's it. That's PechaKucha with all of its warts, but also its benefits. This wasn't a PowerPoint that went on an hour. Any questions? You have like 10 seconds. And it should end now. And does that, Dee Dee, does that? There you go.
I think Pat gets a prize for that timing. That was awesome. Thank you, Pat. All right, next up is Michael Kenny and Boogie Board Surface Connection. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready whenever you are. So like Alan here, I also have one of those fancy-dancy little adapters, but mine fits on my Surface. And so I can plug this into the teaching station. I also have a version of it that works in the teaching stations that don't have the nice HDMI connections. So I can choose which kind of device I want to use because I also use this thing in class with the same setup. So we were told we wanted to teach a class. So I'm going to teach class today. So our class today is going to be about, let me get this in. Can I reseat that? You don't think it's good enough? I was okay. You okay? All right, here, I'll just check and see if I can change. Yeah, I can change my inputs. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Let's go there. It looks a little crooked, but I'll live with it. Like you said, sometimes you live with the technology. So today's class is dimensional analysis. I need a volunteer. I'll pick on my new dean if no one, oh, he walked out. Wouldn't you know it? All right? I see my volunteer over there. So here's your problem. My car gets 28 miles per gallon. I want you to figure that out in kilometers per liter. Yes, wait. Where's your math people? You can get help from the audience, so. Oh, wait, are you writing? Yeah, you should write. Okay. How will they know what you're writing? It's up there. Is it? Doesn't look like it to me. My car gets 28 miles per gallon. And I want to know what that is in kilometers per liter. And I see there's a rotation issue. Let me see if my rotation here will help. I'm going to leave it like that because of the way I gave it to you. All right. Now what are you going to do?
Hold on, Michael, where are you
Michael?
to help me?
Which Michael?
He's not here either.
He's not here either.
All right.
Divide by 0.6.
Okay, well, who's my other
Can I
math
give you a hint?
faculty?
Divide by 0.6 to convert kilometers.
Oh, divide by 0.6.
Divide by 0.6, okay, 28 divided by 0.6.
And now you can see one of the technical issues. When we switched over, we had a problem. So we should have, I should have taken 30 seconds
So
to
who's
reset.
got their calculators, because I don't have that on here.
You might need to erase the screen.
Erase it?
Yeah, I think there's
Okay.
an erase button on there.
Yep, there
There it
is.
is. Oh, good.
Okay, so 28
Greg, your
divided
timing's
by
perfect. I'm gonna pick on you.
0.6. Come on, guys, you have your phones.
46 point, what? 28 divided by 6 is 46.
No,
Oh,
he
you
said
did the whole
0.6.
By 0.6, okay, 46.7.
41.41.6.
Oh, there's a difference.
We'll round, okay. Wait.
So that's Kilometers, Pat?
Kilometers per.
That's kilometers per gallon.
Kilometers per gallon.
Now we want kilometers per liter.
Okay,
So if I'm doing this in class, the student who's sitting out there is able to show what they're doing, getting help from everyone else. And I can step back and say, okay, we're doing this in a method that, okay, this is okay. Is there a better way?
There's no audio here, sorry.
Yeah, there is audio there.
No, I'm telling him.
She doesn't want to be on audio. We're not recording this session, I do not believe so. Are we? Oh, now you tell me. Time's up. How much time do I have there? Dee Dee?
I don't.
50 seconds, all right. Let me grab that from you if I may. So this device does indeed hook up to my phone, but if you're using this in office hours, and I've given this to math teachers, this device is $100. It connects by Bluetooth to my phone. Yeah?
Next time, let's collaborate ahead of time.
Oh, I intentionally wanted to put someone on the spot. This connects to your phone, so what you can do with this is, think of this as a Sharpie with a piece of paper. So anything you write on here, you can save, and it saves to your phone, or whatever Bluetooth device you want. You can then email it, text message it, whatever method you want to that student. So the first thing I do in my office with a student is I put their name or email address on here. We solve the problem, we save it, and then at the end of it, I'll send it to them. But you can do it in class too.
Thank you so much, Michael.
What's the answer?
What's
Is
the
it about
answer?
11?
It's about 11.
Yeah.
The answer's 11. Yes.
I didn't remember it saying that.
All right. Next up, Kathleen Rossman with Brightlink. And you want a 1-minute warning, right? 1-minute warning.
Hi, everyone. So I got lucky, if you want to call it that, in one of my classrooms this past semester. The Brightlink was installed. I said, okay, well, I guess I should probably use that. The only real different thing that I had to do was convert the PowerPoint into PDF, because the Brightlink requires either a PDF or an image. And the PowerPoint that I use it's really just the workbook that the students are using. So if you guys can't see it, just know that when I did this in the classroom, the students they brought their workbooks, which was really helpful to class. You know, once in a while they forgot, but for the most part they had it. So I just wanted to show you. So this isn't me. I just plug my USB into that thing up there and just pull it up, and it's that easy. So this is from their workbook. In class, sometimes we go over there, so they're supposed to have read it beforehand. We know how that goes. But since we were told this was to be interactive, I thought we'd actually just go ahead and do the math. And I don't know if you saw, I just swiped up to change pages on the PDF. So it's actually pretty easy to do that. So again, some of you guys sitting pretty far back, so I don't know how well you can see this. But so this is a map of the United States. You probably could figure that out. And it's an isotherm, so it tells the temperatures. It's following the temperature of the line. So we're just going to go ahead and, however much time we have, we'll answer these questions. Hopefully enough people in the front can see. In Las Vegas, Nevada, that's over here. Anybody close enough to see what the temperature is for that? If you follow the line, it's a curve. That's what makes it a little bit challenging, right? 40. And then I either use the pen or I'm going to use my finger right now to put that down there. Oh. So I have to just kind of click on that there. And then I tell them, you're supposed to be writing that down too, you know. In Phoenix, Arizona, that's there. Well, it's between 40 and 50. So it's going to be more like, I think 48 is probably a pretty good. Yeah. So we got 48 there. With the pen, it's a little bit better. Dallas, right in the middle there. And I got close, and it did make a little mark, so you do have to kind of be careful. If you want to erase, You can erase the whole thing by clicking on this and clicking that button there. I do not want to erase everything, but if I just want to erase a little thing, but then you got to go back to the color that you want to put up there. So did we get a number for Dallas? 25? Yeah, okay. Springfield? Springfield's about there at the S. About 5 or 8. Let's split the difference and call it 7. Atlanta, Georgia, down there. 32, that sounds good. Miami, Florida. 51, 52, that sounds about right. And then finally, New York. Cold, that's a good answer. It's been like that lately, right? Enjoy your day of spring today, because tomorrow we're going back to...
1 minute.
Okay, so about -1. So at the end of class, when we're done with this, I save this, and with my particular class, they were really good and on top of things. So I uploaded the file to our Blackboard site so that if anybody did miss class, they could get it, or if their notes just weren't, if they missed something in their own notes, they could get it. Pretty simple, just tap on it, save to the USB. It's just automatically saving, but normally in the past, I've had to kind of click a bunch of things to tell it where to go. And I was trying to remember what the name is and try to do it right after class, because sometimes the file isn't always obvious what it is. But it worked. It was pretty easy to do, and now it's a PDF that my students can see.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. So that is an example of some of the technology that is all over our campus. Thank you, Kathleen. Next up is Brian Hall, lavalier mic, and whiteboards.
Are you ready to go? Ready. All right. I'm going to talk about 2 pieces of technology that if you use them to your advantage, can transform your class, and one of them is not the mic. I was just given the mic today, so I don't normally teach class with the microphone on, if you wanted to know that. But the 2 pieces of technology, one was developed in the 1950s, used in some schools in the 1960s, but really wasn't incorporated into schools nationwide until about the 2000s. The other piece of technology became its companion around 1975 when it was created. What are these 2 pieces of wonderful tech that transform your classroom? Whiteboard and the marker. One of the things in terms of using it to your advantage, that instead of just using it as, I'm going to put the notes on the board, what are ways that you can incorporate it to help your students and for your students to show what they know? For example, in a brief scenario, I can ask this group a question. One person will answer the question, right? And what normally happens in a lecture then? You answer the question, great answer, maybe it's not so great, but we'll work with it. And then I move on to whatever I have to talk about. What's the downfall or the drawback from that particular style? What do I know for sure? That one person knows it, but I don't know where anyone else is on that subject because I have more things to cover. But if you find a way to incorporate your class, incorporate the markers and the whiteboards in your classroom, or if you don't have enough, we'll talk more about that in a second, getting the students to actually do some of the work. Because those who do the work do the learning. And too often, we are the ones doing most of the work. We are preparing our lectures. We are going through them, preparing the PowerPoints. There are a number of active learning strategies that you can incorporate into the classroom that can get your students up, communicating with each other, and putting information on the board. I'm going to go over 3 real quickly, but I do want to say one of the advantages of doing that is you have the opportunity to see what each one of your students are doing. And you have the opportunity to talk to those students one-on-one to see if there's any questions that they may have, answer anything they may have, but also to correct mistakes in a way where you're not pointing them out to the entire class. So real quickly, 3 techniques that I use in my class, I call one today's lesson. My students have to annotate their textbooks. When they come into class, they go to the board, they have to write 3 main points first. They have to pull out a quote from the reading that they feel connects to these 3 main points, and they have to give their lesson a name that sort of covers the entire point they're trying to make. It takes a little bit of time the first couple weeks, but once class gets rolling, they're walking in and they're going right to the board and doing this. How do I use that then? I'm walking around, I'm talking to the students. If they don't seem to be in the right area with the points, I'm having a conversation with them on how the corrections that need to be made. Or if they're doing great, I say you're doing great and move on. Then the students do a really quick sort of round the room. They give their lesson, but it's just they start from the bottom and go up. They give the lesson's name, they give the quote, they give the 3 main points, and they go on to the next one. It really becomes a good way for me just to know where every student is. The next one that I do is more for group works. I call it the big picture. But in groups, one student is responsible for summarizing, one student is responsible for pulling out main ideas, one student is responsible for taking a portion of the text and analyzing and going deeper, and one person's job is drawing a picture. Yes, you're right. Most people fight over who's going to draw the picture. But I usually tell them what to do. And then on the board, I actually create a picture frame. The outside of the frame here, they're writing the points of summary around. Inside the frame, they can arrange them any way. It's up to them if they want to be, how creative they want to be. Write main points, write their analysis, and draw the picture. This takes more time out of class, but it allows me then to go group to group to see exactly what they know, what they don't know, if everyone has any questions. And then they create something that's kind of interesting, sometimes extremely interesting. The last thing that I do, I am going to cross-tech now, is flash research. This is where if you're reading something in class, you can do a couple of things. You can have either in groups or students on their own, start to list things that they may know about that topic, or they can get out their device and look it up and see what they find out in about a minute or 2 and just write it up on the board. What I like to do with flash research is have students write what they think they know about a topic, then research it to see what it actually is and have a sort of conversation. Am I almost done?
You are done.
I am done. Oh my, who would have known that the whiteboard guy would have so much to say? The other cool thing with it, real quick, as I walk away, if
Should
the
we get the
technology
hook?
doesn't work, there's more.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Taking old technology and using it in new ways. Thank you. That was awesome. All right, next up, Courtney Kelly with PowerPoint Audience Response System.
Hi. So I just want to be clear, I'm not advocating for a particular system. I just want to provide some information about how I use them in class. I use them virtually every single day. And there are just a variety of ways that you can integrate them in order to help boost student engagement, to give you good feedback about your students' knowledge, and to even help just boost discussion in general. Our campus has a plethora of iClickers. So if you want to test run this, you can actually contact the TLC and you can reserve them for any class that you wish. I actually, because I use them so often, I purchased my own set of iClickers for my students so that they don't have to buy them, and then they just use them every single day. They grab one and then give it back to me at the end of class, and it works out well. Beautiful new technology is just using an app. So Plickers, P-L-I-C-K-E-R-S, is an easy one to use. You download the app, print out cards for your students, distribute the cards to the students, and then you scan the room when they answer the question. So there's a wide variety of ways that you can actually, or different types of systems you can use. But one of the ways, I think we have to, there we go. So one of the ways, an easy way that I use it is after we discuss a complicated concept, I want to make sure that the students have a pretty firm grasp of that concept before we move on. Otherwise, if they don't as a whole, let's talk about it more. So independent variables, dependent variables tend to be pretty complicated for students to grasp immediately. So after presenting those concepts, I ask them questions to see how well they grasp that question. And once I get the majority of students have a firm understanding of the difference between the two, then we move on. So one is just implementing review questions right after you've taught a concept to just make sure that it's pretty cemented in their mind. They have a firm understanding. Another way that I integrate them is that in psychology and in many of your disciplines, we talk about pretty sensitive topics. And it is so important for our students to understand that these issues are not issues that other people deal with, people you don't deal with. But it's so important for them to understand that there are individuals you are interacting with right now that are facing these issues or are going through these sensitive issues. So, for example, once we discuss or I introduce a concept that's sensitive, I then just ask them, have you experienced this? Do you know anybody that's experienced this? And the audience response system allows me to ask any questions I want and for them to answer those questions completely anonymously so that they don't feel any pressure for responding accurately and being outed necessarily. So what this also does is not only brings the reality of these topics to the classroom, but it also helps prime any questions that students may have. Okay, so now that you know that 2 people in your classroom have been diagnosed with an eating disorder, you might phrase your question a little bit more sensitively. So it helps do 2 things. Another way that I integrate the iClickers is I will ask questions before I even present the research. So this will allow students to first think about how you really feel about this concept, and then let's see how everybody feels about this concept, and now based on what you said, let's talk about it. Why do you feel the way you feel? And what this does is it helps students get a gauge that in all likelihood, you aren't alone in your opinion. And therefore, it might help spur a little bit more confidence and sharing the rationale for your opinion. And it just helps richen the discussions that we have in class. And then yet another way, I'm pointing it at the screen like that's where the receiver is, but that's not how that works. But we'll just go with it. And then after we have the discussion, then I present the research on what they learned, and then we'll talk about opinions afterwards. On top of that, then when it comes right before the test time, we will now review all the information that's going to be on the test. And it's a good way for students they like pushing the buttons, just like being interactive and seeing where they're at. It also allows, again, for me to see where they're at. Is this a good day for the test, or do we need to change something? So then we'll actually spend a significant amount of time just reviewing questions as well right before the test too. And then last but not least, there are a lot of times where we implement something brand new and we need to know how it worked out. Students might not feel comfortable voicing a dislike. Oh no! So you can ask them how they feel about a new thing. Done. Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. That was very awesome. Sorry to cut you off. I always feel bad, but we got this agenda, and we are doing well. So next is the dual team of Cassandra and Pam. You've got 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Pam Regret. I'm the senior instructional designer in the CLE. And if you have a smartphone, can you pull it out real quick and go on to kahoot.it. And while you're doing that, I'll just very briefly welcome everyone to the CLE MBA 112. Anytime over the semester, all the technologies that were gone over in here, we know a little bit about, and what we don't know, we'll find out for you. And come over, we'll help you learn new technologies, redesign a lesson or a class. And given that, Cassandra is going to do a little review. Courtney kind of led into that for using Kahoot.
All right, Kahoot is a free application that's available online. If you visit kahoot.com, you can set up your own free account as we have done in the CLE. And what it allows you to do is gamify a lesson or activity in your class. So for example, we're going to play, or I'm inviting anyone who's interested to play a little game of Kahoot. And this game is about Blackboard. Right around this time of the semester, many of us are excited or maybe not so excited about getting Blackboard. Some of us may be nervous about getting everything set up, such as your announcements or posting your syllabus or even setting up quizzes or uploading some of your textbook supplemental materials. In the CLE, we're available to help you with that, whether you're new to Blackboard or whether you would like to explore some of the more advanced features. So I went to Kahoot.com, signed up for the free account, and then in order for participants like yourself to join me, you would just simply go to the Kahoot.it website, and you'll be provided with a PIN number in just a moment so that you can play the game. So what you'll need to do is enter game PIN 770084, and as soon as I can see your names show up on the screen, then I'll start the game. So I'll give you a few seconds, and I see many people are signing in. Yay! Thanks for playing with me. And I'm going to go ahead and start the game. On your device, you will start to see the questions on your screen that I'm going to ask about Blackboard. So, first question is, Blackboard announcements can be used to, and what you'll do is quickly select your answer. So, I have 26 answers so far. Notice that the website will monitor how many answers have been selected. And it looks like we have 22 people that answered correctly. All right, our next question. Oh, before proceeding to the next question, it will show in order which student not only answered the questions correctly, but how fast those answers were submitted. And so right now we have Dr. K in the lead. So for our next question, true or false? Blackboard messages can be used to send and receive messages from students. Is that true or false? Quickly submit your answers. Remember, you're scored not only on the correct answer, but how fast you can submit the answer. And we have 6 seconds. Okay, true. Blackboard messages can be used right from within the Blackboard Learning Management System. And that means you don't have to go outside the system to try to manage emails from students if you prefer that way to communicate with your students. All right, our next question. And Christy, congratulations, Christy, for taking the lead. All right, true or false? Blackboard allows you to create self-graded tests. Okay, looks like everyone's on board with that, right? Self-graded tests could save us time. It also provides students with immediate feedback and also provides faculty members or instructors with immediate feedback. All right, looks like Christy is still in the lead. Way to go. All right, the Blackboard calendar is a great feature. If you've not used it, it can be used for a variety of reasons. All right, so one of your options, one of the possible answers could be to conveniently access assignments for grading and to share important dates and reminders with students. If you've never used Blackboard Calendar, all right, way to go. Yes, both A and B are correct. And if you've never used Blackboard Calendar, it's a convenient tool that can be added easily to your Blackboard site. You can even customize the menus on the left side of the Blackboard navigation to include.
Oh, we want to finish.
Oh my goodness, okay. I'm all out of time. How many more questions do you have?
We had 7.
So how many more do you have?
3.
We have some, this is an uber competitive group here. They still want to play. Do we have, like, should we let you play? Yes? Are the baked potatoes wafting in the air? Like, all right, finish the game.
Thank you. Okay, Blackboard menu buttons. I hope I didn't give the answer away to this question as I was talking about what you can do with the Blackboard buttons. But you have 16 seconds to answer this question. The buttons will be those that navigation on the left side of the screen. And so, please choose the correct answer. Quickly. Okay, wonderful. Yes, you can customize the buttons with colors and styles and add to your existing list of menu items. And I believe this may be our last question. We have David B2 now in the lead. Way to go. All right, in Blackboard lessons. I have 2 more questions. All right, Blackboard lessons. It's that space in Blackboard where students can go to possibly access files and folders, access course assignments and materials that you might want to make available. They can possibly connect to textbook supplemental resources available to us from our publishers. Okay, absolutely. All of the above is the correct answer. And last but not least, oh, hey, David B2, still in the lead. All right, last but not least, this is the last question for the day before we get to enjoy our lunch. Blackboard text editor. Is that space in Blackboard where you could put text, but also other assets as well? So what might we want to add to our Blackboard site? If you've never thought about an instructor video, that may be something that you want to consider, and please come over to the CLE. We'll be happy to help you. All right, wonderful. All of the above is correct. Thank you, and thanks. One? Next. Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. David B2. I'm so sorry. Congratulations. And congratulations to everyone, and Christy and Cindy as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Can we give a round to, well, first, David B2, you want to identify yourselves? All right. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I learned so much just sitting here moderating and timing, but I think there are so many wonderful ways to think about how this can be used in your classroom. So show of hands. How many people came away with something that they think they might want to use in their classrooms? Fantastic. That was the point. So unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but the good news is we have lunch next. So you can talk with the folks who are on the stage and ask them questions about their technology. So thank you so much. And our next agenda item is lunch. Thank you.